Hello and welcome to M&A Murders and Accusations, the good, the bad, and the ugly of selling your business. We dig into what you need to know and how not to kill the sell of your business. Now here's our host, Rick J. Krebs, Mergers and Acquisitions Advisor.
Hello and welcome. This is Rick J. Krebs, the M&A Cowboy, coming to you from Heber City, Utah. And welcome to the show today. I'm really excited about our guest. We have Shawn Richards from Blue Sky Business Consulting. And he has a unique approach to business advising. He considers himself a business advisor. And he's going to tell us a little bit about that. So welcome, Shawn.
Thank you, Rick. It's always exciting to spend some time with you. I'm excited to be on your podcast.
Well, I appreciate it. I know everyone's busy. So the first thing I always do is we want to know a little bit about you, something that is interesting that most people wouldn't know who know you. So tell us about something that's interesting. I know you like baseball, but
yes, I'm a big baseball fan. Now, most people know this, but I'm a huge Phillies fan. And this is a good year to be a Phillies fan because they're number one. But we'll see if that holds on through the season here. Something that people don't know. Here's a really fun fact that I don't think anybody will know, but it's from a long time ago. I am actually a licensed locksmith, believe it or not. Way back when I was in college, I took a correspondence course and became a licensed locksmith. I've never done anything with it, but I technically have a license as a locksmith. So there's a fun fact that nobody will know.
That's cool. That's cool. Unlocking the secrets to help these business owners scale their business.
There we go. I like that.
Tell us about Blue Sky Business Consulting, what you do, and then how did you get into that?
It's an interesting background story. I'll kind of go through that in just a second. But Blue Sky Business Consulting is all about helping businesses, especially those who are moving from kind of a growth model to a scaling model. And very simply, a growth model is one in which the owner or owners, if it's a partnership, are working on the business and they're kind of handling everything. They may have a small team or even a large team, but they're still doing everything kind of within their capacity. In order to scale the business, you have to bring in other people. You have to be able to bring in departments, other leaders, and so on and so forth, and to really scale the company. And I help with that little transition because typically most business owners have not thought through the process of how they're going to scale their business. And that's when all the challenges and the problems kind of come to the surface. And so I tackle 4 areas just very quickly. Financial, we kind of take a look and make sure that there are financial systems in place, ready to be scaled. The number 2 item that I like to cover is systems and operations, making sure that all the systems are in place to do that. The third one is a big passion of mine, and that's leadership and teams and company culture and all of those kinds of things. The fourth one is emotional well-being, which is a really important part of business that sometimes business owners don't think about. Everything from work-life balance to avoiding burnout and some of those things. So those are the 4 areas that I like to cover with clients to make sure that they're able to scale the business the way that they want. And as you and I have talked about on numerous occasions, you're involved with the exit. And so I'm hopefully catching them early in the process to say, okay, let's have the vision of where you want to go with this. And what's your exit? What's your plan? What's your vision for where you want to take this company? I got started in this, ironically, quite a number of years ago. I won't go through the whole story because we'd be here all day, but the short version is I was working for a serial entrepreneur and he loved to start businesses. I was his accountant, and so I helped him start the businesses and register the entities and all those kinds of things. And that just kind of evolved over time. People, friends, family, and whatnot would hear what I did, and they would want me to help them with their business. So I kind of just started helping people with their businesses. And that was, from at this point, almost 20 years ago. But over the last 15 years or so, it's evolved into a process where through all of these experiences of working with and for small businesses, I know what the pain is and I know what they're going to run into a lot of times even before they run into it. And so I've just continually evolved and worked with clients to help them avoid those pain points that can really be disruptive in all sorts of ways. And so that's the process that I've kind of gone through over the last 15 to 20 years to become what I consider a confident business consultant that loves helping people and loves helping businesses.
Gotcha. So tell me what an engagement looks like for you. Is it months, years? How long do you work with people, and how does that work? Do you do coaching sessions? What are the expectations?
A little of everything. It depends on what the need is. If they're looking for a business strategy, that's typically a 6-month engagement where I'll come in and do an overhaul and start with a whole, what I call a strategy intensive, to really look at what are some different business strategies that we need to have in place. What are the pieces that are going to need to be in place in order to execute on that strategy? But I also do individual coaching. I also have leadership development courses to help individuals with their leadership and making sure that their leaders within their organization are strong. So it could be any number of things. I try to customize as much as I can my services to the needs of the client. I'm very interested in making sure that each individual has what they need, not necessarily what I think they need. So I come in, and the first thing I start with is I do a simple assessment, and I call it the TBS, or Thriving Business Score Assessment, to just see where things are at, where are the biggest pain points, and then we start to tackle them one by one, and we create plans and work around that are beneficial to the client based on their availability, their time, their team structure, of course, their budget.
Tell me about leadership deficiencies.
It is it's a challenge when you are growing and then scaling the company. The challenge that a lot of leaders and business owners run into is that they're trying to convey their vision, their values, their mission to people that don't quite get it yet. And so that communication is really important. Without that values alignment that you and I have talked about previously, without that alignment, your rank and file and the other leaders won't make decisions consistent with how you would like them made. But you can't do that if you haven't set the stage and created that foundation to build on. But the other part of it, once you've kind of established all of that and have effectively communicated that, then you have to have some ongoing leadership development. I've identified 4 different, and there are lots of different philosophies out there. I recognize that. I developed kind of a system where I identified 4 different areas or leadership styles that a person has. It could be that they're a visionary. It could be that they're an implementer, or they're a servant leader, or they're an expert, or some blend and mixture of those 4. And that's where we start. I believe very strongly that every individual has their own leadership style that they need to develop over time. But we start in one of those 4 areas and kind of develop from there. And when you have it organized like that, you can really blend the leadership team, your executive team, as well as other leaders throughout the company, to place the right style in the right position. And that way you've got a good blend of visionary. A lot of times that's the CEO. They're the ones that are most excited about the future and the vision of the company. But then you've got somebody that can implement that and really execute. And that's typically an operations type person. But you also need somebody that's working as a servant leader, that's working to develop the people within the company to make sure that they're being taken care of, but also that they're receiving some development and some training for their positions. And then the 4th one, being an expert, always learning, always finding someone that can help be that expert within the leadership team on your product, on your company, and your services, all those things. So that's a very, very quick run through. But a lot of times the leadership deficiency exists because they simply haven't been trained properly in any one of those areas or all of those areas to become the most effective leader that they possibly can. And it's a bigger and bigger problem. And, with you, Rick, you're talking about, the mergers and the acquisitions and passing them on to the next generation. A lot of times business owners, they want to pass it on to their kids. It's a great notion, but a lot of times that next generation coming up, they have not received the training, especially in leadership, to really lead the company effectively. And so that's another common deficiency that I'll discover when we're trying to work with leaders. So there's just a few examples for you and your audience.
I like that. And I like that you identify those leadership styles, and none of them are good or bad.
Right.
They're different, and each are important. You get the visionary that goes out and makes the plan, but then there has to be people that implement the plan. And the people that implement the plan, they have to get other people on board, right? They're out selling the sauce. They're out getting disciples for the endeavor that they're going to take on, right? And so I love that you identify those styles. And then I think in identifying those styles, when you look at hiring, you can say, okay, what type of leader do we need for this position?
Right. That's exactly. Right. Yeah, you've nailed it. It's not that you necessarily replace existing interview questions for your leaders or even just your rank and file, but you're adding a few extra questions that you may not have asked before. Everything from what do you consider your leadership style to be? How do you like to lead? And it gives you an opportunity to share with that individual, that prospect, what the values and the vision and the mission of your company is so that you can help them to see and to start to get a feel for your company culture. So it's a really important part of hiring and onboarding and all of that.
I love that. And I heard a quote years ago. I don't remember who it was. It's talking about don't send your ducks to Eagle School. If you need a swimmer, you hire a duck.
Right.
You need a flyer, you're going to hire an eagle. And the eagles are horrible flyers. In fact, catching too big of a fish and drowning are the leading cause of death of an eagle.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Kind of interesting, right? And they're eagles. You wouldn't think so, but they drown because they're really not meant to swim.
Well, and you read about this and you hear about it quite frequently. And this is why I have the styles system that I have, because you'll have a successful CEO in one company or industry, and then they go somewhere else. And for some reason they struggle. And it's like, well, why all of a sudden do they struggle? A lot of times it's because they don't adapt their style to a new system. And you don't completely abandon your original style that's innate within you, but you do need to kind of recognize, well, what's needed in the new company. And a lot of times we try to take the one size fits all approach. We got it over here. We're going to apply it here. It'll just automatically and magically work. Not always the case. We have to learn to be dynamic. We have to learn to adjust and modify our leadership style and approach depending on circumstances. If you're in a crisis situation, you might need to approach things a little bit differently than if you were in a non-crisis situation, and as well as the people that you work with. Sometimes they need a different kind of leadership style, and understanding all those principles helps you become a more effective leader.
Gotcha. And you were telling me earlier about a poll you have people take that kind of identifies their skills and their leadership style. Tell me about that.
Yeah, you bet. This is something that I have become very passionate about. I came across what's known as the Clifton Strengths Assessment. It is put out by the Gallup company. Most people have heard of Gallup polls. And Gallup is, in my view, the number one workplace research company in the world. And they have been studying workplace behaviors for decades. And they have a Clifton Strengths Assessment that helps an individual understand what their unique talents and strengths are. And when I first took the assessment at this point, oh boy, it's been 7, 8 years ago, I just fell in love with it. I loved the concept. I loved the principle and the philosophy behind it. So I became a certified coach with Gallup, specifically for their Strengths Finder or Clifton Strengths Assessment. And I use those principles and apply it to leadership. And that's how I came up with the philosophy and the framework on the 4 leadership styles, was to be able to say, okay, here's where you have strength. Here's where you're not quite as strong. Let's not focus on the part where you're not as strong. Let's help develop the part where you're really good. Let's make it better, but let's make you aware of some of the other things. And so I highly encourage people to learn more about themselves, become more self-aware of where your strengths are. And that's where you focus. Focus on your strengths. Yes, let's manage the weaknesses. Let's get better at those things, but really focus and develop yourself in your area of strength. And that's going to be such a more positive experience for you and those around you.
Gotcha. And you enjoy it. If they're enjoying it, they're having fun.
Oh yeah. People love to learn about themselves, and depending on the personality of the individual, most people like to learn about the people around them, whether it's family and friends, whether it's other coworkers, leaders, whatever it is. So it really is a fun experience for those who will engage in the process.
Gotcha. Very good. Anything else that you'd like the listeners to know?
I appreciate any opportunity to just get to know people and help people where I can. And that is something that I'm certainly not an expert in all things. I have kind of that jack of all trades, master of maybe just one. That's the leadership part. I'm not an expert at it, but at the same time, I have a lot of experience and have had some great experiences with clients in leadership development. But I certainly want to help in any area that I can. And when the time comes that we've kind of maxed out my experience, that's what I'll pull in from my network and bring in other experts to help with the company. And so I just am really, really anxious that business owners succeed and really thrive in their business, and how they can do that without experiencing a misbalance in their work-life balance. It makes me sad when I hear of business owners that go through divorce because of the business, if that's what's causing the challenges, they're spending too much time at work, or it's too much of a stress. every once in a while I hear business owners that hate their own business because they started with all these ambitions. 5 years later, not even close to what they'd envisioned, and now they hate their own business. And that makes me sad too.
Interesting. So how do people reach you? How did they find you?
I can be found on LinkedIn, Shawn J. Richards. The J is important because there's a lot of Shawn Richards out there. I also have a website, Blue Sky Biz, B-I-Z, consulting.com. So I'm always happy. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to find me. But I always love engaging with people. So feel free to reach out and ask questions, and I'm happy to help.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you for being on our show.
Thank you, Rick. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for attending our podcast. We invite you to join us for future episodes of M&A, Murders and Accusations, the good, the bad, and the ugly of selling your business. You can also visit us at www.bsalesgroup.com or email Rick directly at rick@bsalesgroup.com.